Israel has lodged a formal complaint against the BBC over what it claims is deliberately lying about the recent violence in Gaza, demanding it change a headline, seeing on your screen now, that said Israel killed a pregnant woman and her child, but omitting the Palestinian rocket fire at Israeli civilians that preceded Israel's retaliatory airstrikes. The spokesperson of the Foreign Ministry, Amir Oren, demanded the item be removed on his Twitter feed. Let's put up that tweet. There's a Twitter. It says he demands it be changed immediately. And later, indeed, the item's headline was changed, adding the rocket attacks, as we can see it here. And the BBC spokesperson said, although the original headline was not factually incorrect, we updated it to add more context to the story. Let's go to Aaron in New York. What do you think of this, and how important actually is this media battle?
It's actually critical, and I'll tell you, this is just a small example. I see headlines like this practically every day in which aggression from Hamas, aggression from the Palestinian Authority is ignored entirely, and instead this is portrayed as the victim becoming the aggressor. First of all, look at the casualty counts in general in Gaza. Don't forget that they're provided by Hamas, a terrorist organization. So many times the media takes terrorists for their words. I work at Breitbart, where we subscribe to numerous major agencies for the wires, the AP, Reuters. I can't tell you the number of times each day we can't run some of their pieces on Israel because of the heavy bias. So This one headline is just a small example of the battle that Israel faces every day for real news versus the fake news that comes from the news media.
Amir, would you agree?
Israel shouldn't get into this game of fake news. It should let a headline pass. It doesn't really matter. It's old-fashioned. What's the point?
Doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. What's the point of calling on a certain, even if august, broadcasting service to change its headline? It shouldn't.
I'm glad we have the former head of the GPO here. Would you agree that it doesn't matter? Maybe making too much. Is it making a mountain out of a molehill?
I think there are two problems here. One is that when you don't have policy, and it's not only the policy vis-a-vis Gaza, it's also a public relations policy, then they pounce on any opportunity that they have and waste their time on that.
Are you talking about the Israeli Foreign Ministry?
Not only the Foreign Ministry. I have another problem, that the IDF, most of the public relations coming out of this battle has been from the IDF. The IDF has to deal with representing and providing the public here, sometimes with the foreign press, with information as to what is going on, factual information. They shouldn't be involved in the PR campaign of the State of Israel. But since the government is lazy, it has allowed for generations now, for years now, has allowed the military to run the PR campaign. That's a fault.
Objection?
Yes.
Yes.
Feel free.
Two objections. Yes.
You're next.
Objection. The Israeli Defense Forces is fighting on two fronts. It actually doesn't want to go into Gaza, but it can't give off this impression. So it is trying.
Who asked them? No.
So it is.
It's the government who makes the decision.
No.
That's part of the problem.
It is trying to fill the void vis-a-vis Hamas. It is part of the psychological warfare. It has nothing or almost nothing to do with domestic politics. It is trying, in addition to the kinetic strikes, to impress Hamas in a certain way.
I don't see that they're impressed very much.
Okay, let's go to the second objection.
Yeah, yes. If we're talking about the media, no. If we talk about the British.
The British, okay.
Yes, okay.
Go ahead.
That reminds me of something else. The very, very famous book, story by Oscar Wilde, Picture of Dorian Gray. If you remember, the story was about someone that was very beautiful or handsome, and because every time that he did something very vicious, so he didn't, his face were not changed, but the picture of his was changed. Okay? This is what I mean. Because that's what I want to say. Israel does so many vicious things. But instead of stopping, just a second, we are talking about now how Israel is presented, as it were, in the media. So that's the question. You want to talk about something else?
Go ahead.
I'll be delighted. So anyway, because Israel does continuously war crimes and some other vicious stuff, instead of stopping doing those vicious deeds, it wants to hide it, as exactly did this Dorian Gray. Instead of changing his own behavior, he wanted to change the picture.
Aaron, 30 seconds. Aaron, 30-second response.
I don't understand what war crimes he's referring to. Hamas is firing rockets at civilians. The IDF goes to great lengths in order to protect the civilians that Hamas uses as human shields. And by the way, the media is serving almost as propagandists many times for Hamas.
The media is
so you should appreciate the fake news media.
I just watched a program last week by an Australian program,
yes,
in regard to with an interview with some journalists that were talking about the attitude they got, you know, as a response to their reporting by Israeli ambassadors or the embassy in Australia and some others. There is a continuous bias for Israel. There is
for Israel.
For Israel.
Are you kidding?
I do not say that
it's lucky that we have our own state these days.
If another state would do what Israel has been doing, it would have ended ages ago. Partly by the reporting of somebody.
The fact is, luckily we have our own state these days, and we can tolerate and be accept this kind of self-bashing and self-hatred. It's not years ago when people like you were leading the
anti-Semitic criminals, not myself. I want my state to behave. I want my state to behave in a moral sense.
No, you want us to commit suicide. It's not going to happen.
My hatred is towards the criminals, not towards my state.
Who's the criminals? That's the Hamas and the criminals. Those are the Arabs who never accept
the ministers of Israel and the prime minister. The Klein minister.
Amir Oren, 20 seconds.
I'm leading the center party here. I should have a platform after the break.